3, 2, 1. And I'm here. Hello everyone and welcome to Wine List Live. I'm Isabelle, I'm head of wine at Wine List. So we have a little bit of a different thing going on this evening. So what we usually do is we talk about one wine for half an hour and then the second. And we will be talking about both our wines for August, the Cabra Y El Monte and Vallechiusa Rosso. My accent, I won't do those accents in it, don't worry. You can still watch the video without me doing accents. But this week we're doing something a little bit different. So the first 20 minutes of this tasting is going to be about how to taste. We're going to look at our tasting cards and we're going to talk about how you go through a tasting card, how you measure tannins, how you measure acidity, what they are. So it's mainly focused for beginners, but you're very welcome to join us if you would like to. Then for the next 20 minutes, so that's first 20 minutes, the next 20 minutes between 8:20 and 8:40 we'll be talking about Cabra Y El Monte. And the next 20 minutes after that, at 8:40, we'll be talking about the red. So if you're watching this live, comment, say hello, let me know if you can hear me okay. Oh, I can already see you in the comments. Hi everyone, it's the usual gang, lovely to see you again. And if you're watching this back in your own time, you can watch it any time because it's saved on YouTube. But I will put at the bottom a very handy little comment guide so you can see and click on exactly which minute you want to look at to see exactly which part of the wine tasting you want to see. But our first 20 minutes, we'll be talking about our tasting cards. So all you need to do is have a tasting card. You don't need to have one, you can see mine if you want. Here it is, my tasting card. And you'll also need a glass of wine. So I've just poured out this month's wine, so it's Cabra Y El Monte. And we're basically, how do you taste your wine? The most important thing, which I always say how you taste your wine, is about the glass you've got it inside. So I always remember when you're sort of at a house party and you're drinking wine out of a mug, it doesn't taste the same. Fiona's drinking wine out of a tin right now, a little canny wine. I've got a full-on professional wine glass. But when you can do it yourself now, you can have some wine in a mug and have some wine in a glass and notice the difference between your enjoyment when you're tasting it. So the reason why glasses are shaped like this, it doesn't really matter if you have a stem or not, that's fine. But the most important part is the shape here. So you want the widest part at the bottom, tapering up to the top. You pour your wine to the widest part at the bottom to give yourself the biggest surface area of wine. So all of that wine, as much of it as possible, is in contact with the air, so all the flavours are drifting up and it's tapered so they get trapped inside there. Then, hi everyone. Oh, just getting tea ready for the tasting. Lovely. Me and Fiona just had our dinner. It was very, very nice. And it definitely did not pair well with the wines, but it's fine. We've had a glass of water since. So the first thing we want to do with this wine is get the temperature right. So I've put this one, it's a very hot day, so I put it in the fridge for quite a while. Then I got it out about 20 minutes ago, just so it's starting to warm up. And the colder your wine is, the less you can taste inside wine. So you want your wine to be a little bit warmer to taste it. And especially with really, really lovely, lovely white wines, you want them a little bit warmer. Fridges are sort of 5 degrees and 5 degrees is a bit cold. You want your white wines to be between 7 and 12 degrees. And this one is specifically 9. I mean, roughly is fine. So if it is a bit cold, just warm it up in the palm of your hand and you'll be absolutely fine. Oh, hi to everyone who's saying hello. It's so nice to see you all. Sorry I missed last month. We will be coming back with a bang tonight with our brand new wines. So the first thing we're going to look at on our tasting card is this side. This is full of loads of information, so you can hear about the winemaker story, which we will hear about in sort of 16 minutes time, quick maths in my head. So we'll be talking about the wine, and we have a little message from the winemakers as well. And Laura from Arrocal is with us as well, so we can't wait to chat to her. Oh, she's just said hi in the comments. Hi, Laura. So you've got local food pairings, you've got food pairings, a bit about the grape and region, and if you turn over to this side, this is what we're going to look at. We're going to break the wine down, get our heads around it. So the first thing is colour. And it's white, but all you need to do is hold your wine over a white piece of paper. So your tasting card is perfect for this. And you can compare the exact colour of your wine to the white paper behind it. So you can see the colour. We'll break it down more in about 20 minutes time. But tannins are basically, tannins are about how much it dries your mouth out. So if you sort of taste and it feels like the Sahara Desert, it means it's got high tannin. If it feels silky and it's not drying your mouth out, like white wines don't have tannin, no tannins, you can completely cross it out basically. And then when we look at acidity, acidity is always my favourite one to look at because it's the most important one basically, and there's a fun way to do it as well. So the acidity test is basically seeing how much acid is inside your wine. So you take a sip of wine, swallow it, and then you open your mouth and you tilt your head forward like this. And you count how many seconds it takes before you need to close your mouth before you're going to dribble all down yourself. So it's usually a lot easier to practice that with white wine because when you do it with reds, if you're wearing white, it becomes such a nightmare, but oh, my mouth's really watering. So that's how you measure acidity. And then sweetness is the bit of a sciencey one. Sweetness is, it's how many exact grams of sugar are inside your wine per litre of wine. So if you're at the dry end of the scale, sometimes you taste a wine, you think, oh, that tastes really fruity, but it might not necessarily contain sugar inside it. So the dry end of the scale is between 0 and 17 grams of sugar. Then you go up to medium sweet at about 35 grams of sugar per litre. And the upper end of the scale, when you have a really sweet dessert wine, is 120 grams of sugar per litre, which sounds like loads. It's actually really similar to Coca-Cola. That's 100 grams of sugar per litre. And really, it's not a whole litre, it's only 3/4. Unless we have another wine and that's a litre, which is the perfect park drink. I opened one yesterday, it was very, very nice. So, sweetness is basically how many grams of sugar are inside there. It's a bit of a difficult one to measure sometimes. It's when you make wine, you take grape juice, which is sugar and water basically, and then yeast eats sugar and creates alcohol and CO2. So if you're creating alcohol from the sugar is no longer there, it's been changed into something else. So when you're tasting, usually when you have quite a high alcohol wine, I think these ones are both around the same, yeah, they're both 13 and 13.5, and that means that the yeast has eaten all of that sugar and changed it all into alcohol. So I always think the best way to test it is if you pinch your nose and drink it. You don't realise how important your nose is for tasting wine, because that's another reason why it's shaped like this, so your nose can fit inside the glass. You're inhaling all those aromas just before the wine hits your tongue. So really you're smelling all these lovely sweet things and your brain thinks, oh, I'm tasting lots of sweet things, but you're actually not. So if you shut your nose off, and then you'll be able to taste that it is actually a lot drier than you thought when you were smelling it at the same time. Then the body. So body is all about, it's all about how the wine feels. So imagine having 2 glasses of milk in front of you, and if one glass of milk is skimmed milk and the other one is full fat milk, that's the difference between body and wine. Skimmed milk is really light, really clean, it's like water, and full fat milk is rich, it's textured, it feels rounder. And that's exactly what it's like with wine. So you can have it with any coloured wine, you can have it with white, red, rosé, orange, and you'll be able to feel that texture with your wine. So when you put 2 wines next to each other, light-bodied and full-bodied, there'll be such a difference just in texture. You can forget everything else will be different too, but that texture is really different. Actually, full-bodied white's my favourite, but it's more of a winter thing, more lighter body in summer. Then the finish on wine is very, very important. And someone emailed me recently actually and said they went to a wine tasting, they looked at finish first, even though it sounds contrary, but looking at finish, that's the best way to tell straight away how good quality the wine is. So if you take a sip of wine, I'll just do one for demonstration in case you haven't seen me take a sip of wine. Yum. And then you start counting, so after you swallow it, you start counting how long you can taste those flavours for on your tongue. Try and ignore the acidity, think about the flavours, and then as soon as it's gone, you've got your seconds. So if you have about 3 seconds, it's quite rubbish. 5 seconds is getting good, 7 seconds is really good, and 10 seconds is all the way on this side. It's out of this world. It's really, really well made wine. Then, so we've done all of our characteristics at the top here, been through all 6 of those. And then we talk about aromas. So we have 2 aroma circles, and these are talking about all different flavours that you can get in wine. We're talking about flavours, things you can smell, things you can taste. And it's not like any of these are actually in your wine, but when you break down your wine into its core chemical components, they're the same chemical components that you find in, say, lemon. So there's a compound called citronelle, which is found in white wine, and it's also found in lemons. And your brain very cleverly goes, that's in exactly the same thing, and matches them up, and then says, well, this wine tastes and smells like lemons. So the first circle, this one on the left-hand side here, this one is what we call the simple aromas, the main aromas, the primary aromas. And these are lots of sort of fruits and flowers and very naturally occurring normal type of flavours. So on the left-hand side, it's more red wine stuff like raisins, plum, red cherry, red currant. At the top, you've got a bit of floral, elderflower, rose, violet. They can be in white or red wine, any colour wine. And on the right-hand side, it's usually more white wines smell like this. So apple, gooseberry, orange, peach, and nectarine. And every single bottle of wine that you'll ever open will taste and smell of fruit, something from this circle. If it's lacking that, it means your wine's probably gone off. It's gone a bit aged, something bad has happened to it. But every single one will taste like that. Then, if you have an extra special wine, you go to the second circle on the right-hand side. So this circle is, it's unusual flavours. I mean, as you'll see from this, very unusual flavours. We'll start with the less weird ones. Steel, mint, pepper, olives, yeast, vanilla, almond, hazelnut, and barnyard. So they do get a little bit weird, but a winemaker has to make an active decision to do something to their wines, to change it up a little bit, to age it a bit longer, to put some different types of lees aging or different bacteria from the yeast. And this will start to develop these different unusual flavours. So you'll have those main fruit aromas, and then on top of that, you'll get these weird funky aromas. And the mark of a good wine is if you're balanced between all of these things. So you want a really good balance between having fruit aromas and having the weird aromas. If you just have fruit aromas, it's still a really good wine. It's been made to be really enjoyable, quite nice, easy. If you just have those bizarre aromas from the second circle, it's a bit overpowering. You don't really want a wine that just tastes like cinnamon. No, Fiona wants a wine that just tastes like cinnamon, maybe at Christmas time. You don't want a wine today, her drinking wine out of her tin. You don't want a wine that just tastes like a coffee, because you might as well just have a coffee. And alcohol's doing the opposite thing to coffee. It's making you sleepy. But all of these aromas are a bit weird. It'd be very odd if you just drank a wine that tasted like that. So you need balance between them. If you're going to have some funky barnyard flavours like you do in Chateauneuf de Pape, you want some red fruit flavours to balance it out. And when we talk about balance, it's the key thing for everything in wine. So we want balance between all of our aromas. You don't want anything too overpowering. You just want it all tweaked nicely. And you want balance between your characteristics as well. That's why acidity is so important, because it's the main thing for balance. You know, when you have, going back to Coca-Cola, you know, when you have Coca-Cola and there's a lot of sugar inside there, it's 100 grams of sugar. But because you have so much acidity in Coca-Cola, it balances up with that sweetness. So it feels like a really fresh, easy to drink long tall glass. Ooh, maybe I want a Coca-Cola. And when you have acidity, so it balances out sweetness, because it's making your mouth water loads. It's also balancing out tannins. So if your wine is really sort of drying your mouth out, in comes acidity to swoop and save the day and make it feel really fresh and balanced. So all these things, we want balance. And when we're looking for those really, really good wines, we're looking for 4 things. So that first one is balance. The second one is finish. It's what we talked about on our characteristics. And finish is all about how long you can taste that wine for. It's how well those grapes have been looked after. If you looked after really well, then it's got a really nice sort of intensity and finish to it. And so we've got balance, we've got finish, and the other two are about our aromas. So if you can only pick sort of just apple and lemon and that's it on your aromas, it doesn't have much depth of flavour. If you can pick sort of 5 things on there, 10 things, more, the more you can pick, the more depth of flavour it has. So the better sort of, the more interesting it is for your brain. So as you're drinking it, you're tasting something new and smelling something new each and every time. So it's really interesting. And depth of flavour is one of the marks of quality of wine. And the last one is all about complexity, complex flavours. And that's when we don't just stay in the first circle, it's when we move on to that second circle over here. So it's not just staying simple, it's getting a bit more interesting. And again, it's making it more interesting for your brain. So it's getting a bit of interest with that. So balance, finish, depth of flavour, complexity when the flavours get a bit more fun. And that's what we're looking at when we look at a really good wine. So there's the 4 things. I always find when I go to the pub and sort of buy the house wine, and I do find I'm enjoying it, I'm having a very nice time, but when you count them all, you're sort of like, it's okay, it's kind of balanced, nearly. And then the finish is such an interesting one. It's so different on finish. You'll notice it's sort of 3 seconds. I tried a very fancy wine, and it was the longest finish. It was about 20 seconds. It's absolutely crazy. That's when people are buying these really expensive wines. I don't think I paid for it. But when people are buying these really expensive wines, they can have finishes that are almost a minute. And then I had this really fancy wine, and then I had an Aldi wine straight afterwards, and I thought, oh, that is a really big difference in finish there. So we're at 17 minutes past, but it's 3 more minutes until we talk about the next winemaker. So if you want to pour out your glass of white wine, temperature wise, mine's a bit warm now, it's quite a warm room. How are you doing? Yeah, it's warm. But if it's warm, it's actually, I think it's better warmer than colder, this one. It really sort of comes out, it comes a bit juicy. I know, it's lovely. But Hannah is saying, hi everyone, lovely to see and hear from you again. I know, it's so nice to see you all. Hi from new happy customers, Liesel and Bronte. Very nice to hear from you, that is so lovely. If it is your first time, you can say hi. We will be tasting the Cabra Y El Monte next, so if you want to get that out. If anyone is doing the food pairings that I gave you on here, please do let me know, because I put the food pairings courgette fritters and anything with sort of sheep's cheese, so it'll be very nice, very wonderful. But I hope you're all enjoying your wine. So, shall we just get started? Yeah, let's go for it. I just like efficiency. So we're going to have Cabra Y El Monte. So it's this one. And very kindly, Laura has joined us to say hello from the winery. So she's over there at the moment. But Cabra Y El Monte, as you can see from the front of the bottle, can you see this? There's a goat man on the front, and he's having a glass of wine, because Cabra Y El Monte means the goat and the mountain. And it's because the region where they're from is really sort of very rural, up in the hills, mountainous. Lots of goats around as well, and it's all a little bit wild too. Oh, Denise just said she did courgette fritters. Fiona just did that on the other side of the camera. She's very happy. And Tom has some manchego and a whole host of Spanish plates. So nice. I'm so proud. It's wonderful. Wine and food pairing is my favourite thing in the whole wide world. So, Ben and Hannah have goat's cheese, which will be very good, because the perfect pairing for goat's cheese is Sauvignon Blanc. And this has got some Sauvignon vibes to it, so it'll be a really good pairing. You've got the high acidity of goat's cheese and acidity in wine. It means it'll match it really nicely. So anyway, I will introduce this wine. So Cabra Y El Monte is from Ribera del Duero in Spain, and I can show you a little map of it right now. Here we go. So as you can see, here's Spain. And so just by Barcelona, if you go sort of to the left of Barcelona, you've got Rioja. And then you go even further left, just where Arrocal is, and that's Ribera del Duero. And these two regions have so many similarities between them. One of the main differences, so they're both very sort of inland, very rural, very hot, very dry. But with Arrocal in Ribera del Duero, it's, as you know from the name, Ribera del Duero. It's on the Duero River. So we actually talked about this in our last tasting, but someone asked, is Douro Valley in Portugal the same as Duero? And it is. So when you have wines from Portugal, people always talk about the Douro Valley, and it's going from that sort of, it's going from central Spain through Portugal, where it becomes this really big river, winding through a whole valley, and it's where all the wine in Portugal is from. Not all of it, but a big sort of famous area for winemaking, because it's perfect for irrigation. It has a really nice environment around it, really great climate. And before you get to the Douro Valley, it's, well, Douro River, it's Duero, and that's the Spanish word for it. So it's at the very sort of origins of this river, up in the mountains, where it's only a very tiny little stream. And this is the beginning of it. So this is where Ribera del Duero is. Ribera del Duero is mainly known for their Tempranillo, and they had a DO, so Denominación d'Origine, and that basically means when you have a really great region and you want to protect that region and show to people on your bottle that you have a great region, you have sort of wine laws to protect it, so you can put that name on your bottle. And you see this all over the world, mainly in Europe, very much so in France. But in Ribera del Duero, it was only used for Tempranillo, for red wine. But in 2019, they changed it, so they allowed it for their white wines as well. So historically, they've been known for wines that are very sort of similar to Rioja, sometimes a little bit, I always find them a little bit fresher, just because it's slightly cooler climates, cooler evenings, cooler winters. And now they've allowed their white grapes. So this is really exciting, because it was only done in 2019. And as you can see on the bottle now, 2020, so it's the first year after it. And you can see it says Ribera del Duero on there. So that's the first year that they've been allowed to put Ribera del Duero, that famous name, on their bottles for white wine. So this is Albilo Mayor, and Albilo Mayor is a grape that's very sort of local to the area, but I think now that that law has changed, you're going to see it more and more, because it's such a big thing now. It's sort of been, it's like having a promotion. It's got a big promotion, it's got a big name, it's got a big plaque on the front of the door, and they're going to be producing some great wines now, because you can sort of put that investment into a great wine and people will buy it because it's got Ribera del Duero on the front of the label. Wine is always so fashion. So when we're looking at this region, I'll show you how beautiful it is, but this is it. Look at that, how gorgeous. So it's a very sort of arid landscape. They have very hot summers, hot days, and then at night time suddenly very cold, because they're so inland. There's no sort of moderating sea to moderate all the temperature out, and it's very cold in winter as well, freezing cold in winter. So I'll show you Rodrigo and Asier. Hopefully you can hear this. I've done about 10,000 tests, let me know.
Hello, my name is Asier from Arrocal, and we are very pleased that you have the opportunity to taste our wines.
Hello, my name is Rodrigo, third generation with my brother, and here the fourth generation. Also, he is so happy that you can taste our wines and his future wine. Albilo Mayor, white wine, Ribera del Duero. Hope you enjoy it.
Hope you enjoy it.
How lovely. Could you hear that? Let me know if you can hear it okay. How lovely is that, baby? So thank you so much, Laura, for sending that. But Rodrigo and Asier, so basically, Arrocal is the name of Rosa Arroyo, who's their mum, and Moises Calvo. So Arroyo and Calvo, and they put their surnames together to create Arrocal. So this vineyard has been in the family for a couple, well, they're now on fourth generation with their little son. But it was planted by their grandparents, and then their parents took over it in 1997. Oh, thanks, Denise. Their parents took over it in 1997 and they put loads of investment into it. So they've grown up in this region their whole lives. Their parents grew up in the village, they've stayed there. And I think this is why they've used Albilo Mayor grape, because it's such a traditional grape for them. Even if they couldn't put their big Ribera del Duero name on it before, they can now, and they've always loved it. So they, thanks everyone for letting me know. Oh, so many tech tests going on. Should I do testing? So they put lots of investment into it, and in 2003 planted even more vines. So even though 2003 doesn't sound that long ago, those vines are coming up to 20 years old now. So when you have an older vine, it's giving it more concentration of flavour. So when you're tasting that, you should get a lot more concentration. It's not just some watery, easy drink, it's concentrated. They also built a new wine cellar as well, which is amazing. So they've got all the latest new technology. And shall we just drink it? Should we taste it? Yeah. So, colour of this one. For those of you who joined the first 20 minutes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But colour is, shall I hold it up to the light? It's super clear, that one. And it's August. You want a sort of, you can definitely, almost definitely, judge a wine by its colour. When you look at white wine, you can almost tell how intense it's going to be based on colour. The more a white wine ages, usually oak aging in particular, it really adds colour, but it'll become really sort of yellow, it'll be orange, it'll be like almost marmalade. And the lighter it is in colour, usually the more delicate it is, because it's not had any sort of skin contact, which turns it into an orange wine, and it's not really had that much oak aging. It's only had a little bit of this one. Actually, can you guess how many months oak aging it's had? Can you guess its oak aging? She says 10. It is 4 months oak aging, this one. And interestingly, in Spain, so whenever you have wines from Rioja, quite often they're aged with American oak. And it's because Spain has really good sort of trading links with America historically, so they would always use American species trees or even American oak itself. And American oak, when you age it inside a barrel that's made from American oak, tastes different. It's more coconutty, but when you taste it, when you age a wine inside French oak from French oak species and French wood, it tastes different again. So rather than that coconutty caramel of American wood, it's sort of baking spices and vanilla. What they've done here is they have mostly French oak, even though Spain has mostly American oak usually. But it's 80% of their barrels are French. This is all done in French barrels, but they're older barrels. So when you're tasting this wine, we'll talk about this a lot more in the next wine too, but when you're tasting this, you should feel that texture from oak aging. It's only 4 months, it's just a little bit. They basically wanted, they wanted to age the wine and give it some elegance and oomph, a bit of flounce, but without losing the identity of Albilo Mayor from the region. So it's old barrels, and when you have old barrels, it basically means it's not giving as much oak flavour to it anymore. So if you have brand new oak wood, it's very, very porous, it soaks through. It's like when you, I mean, this worktop is wood, but when you pour a glass of wine in this worktop, it seeps in and it keeps it in there as well. It's like a sponge. So in turn, it's giving flavours back and it's changing the wine a lot. When you have older wood, it's still changing the texture of the wine, the acidity, the tannin if it's a red, but it's not changing the flavours anymore. It's not giving it a big flavour. So, our acidity. Well, we can cross tannin out because it's a white wine, so we've got no tannin on this one. Completely cross it out, as you can see. And then the acidity is, we can do our acidity test. I'll let you do your acidity test here, but take a sip of it. See how much your mouth is watering. I nearly put my head too far over them and just spit it all out. Whew. Oh, hi to Tim. Thanks, Tim. I'm all good. So, what's the acidity like? Is everyone's mouth watering a lot? Because, as you noticed, I left a little Easter egg clue earlier when I showed you the picture of the vineyard and it looked so arid and dry. But very hot summers, no, very hot days, very cold nights. And we all know what that means. It means when you have a hot day and a cold night, it means you have a big diurnal range. If you have a sort of medium day and a medium night, you've got no diurnal range. So it's very, very big diurnal range here, and that is really good for wine because the bigger your diurnal range, the more acidity you'll get inside your grape. And the more acidity you have inside your grape, the more you have it inside your wine. So as a grape, oh, well done everyone, 3-4 seconds, yeah, you're all right. It's really high, quite high acidity, but not the highest. I've put 3/4 of the way up on this one. If your mouth waters straight away, that is really high acidity. 3-4 seconds is more like 6 or 7 out of 10. Yeah, pretty fresh. If you have found that your acidity isn't as much, this one over here, it's because we've not been drinking enough water all day, so you might be a bit dehydrated. But yeah, super, super fresh that one, but not too much. So because our diurnal range is big, in the daytime, the grape is ripening from all that sunshine, all that heat, and all that photosynthesis going on. So have you ever picked a grape really, really early, way before it's meant to be picked, and it's sour, like a sour plum when it's picked way too early? And it's because fruit starts with a lot of acidity and no sugar, and you need to find that balance within the fruit. So as your grape ripens with all that sunshine and photosynthesis, it's creating sugar and taking it from its acidity. So in a hot daytime, it's taking away the acidity and making sugar, and then at night time, it suddenly gets really, really cold, and instead of still sort of carrying on and keeping the heat of the day, it suddenly drops down, and it keeps all that acidity while still having that sugar there. So it's a really, really good one to use for wine tasting. If you ever have a climate where it's really sort of very inland, you don't have any moderating sea influences, you can go, this is high acidity, it's probably very, very inland, this one. So the next one is sweetness, and as we know, it is making sugar from photosynthesis, but how much sugar and how much of that sugar has then been turned into alcohol after it. So it's a very, very hot region, lots of sunshine. It creates a lot of sugar in the grape because it's really, really ripe, the grape. It's perfectly ripe when they pick it. So when they're creating their wine, all of that yeast is eating all of the sugar and creating alcohol. And that's why we've got 13% alcohol in this one. So yeah, absolutely right. As Anne says, completely dry, this one. And it's one of those ones where I first smelt it, I thought this is really, really apricot-y. I think it smells really strongly of apricots, but then when you taste it, it's suddenly super clean, fresh, dry. Yeah, dry. So, body on this one. What is the body like? How does the wine feel? Think about your glasses of milk. Does it feel light? Does it feel rich and full and rounded? Albilo Maya is often used inside blends. So as you'll find with the next one again, oh, so many links and tie-ins. Often when you have a region that's really famous for their red wines, they usually mix a little bit of white wine in there, sometimes to just sort of make it a bit fresher if they've not quite got the right balance between their wines. And when you make red wine in Ribera del Duero, Tempranillo, big, weighty, full, oak-aged, really nice for the Sunday roast usually. And sometimes if they haven't quite got the balance right, they'll put a little bit of white wine in there. It's very traditional, they've done it for centuries. So it's sort of part of the recipe now. And so when you often make Ribera del Duero, they sometimes add a little bit of Malvasia in there. You find it in all the winemaking regions too. They just pop a little bit of white in. So, medium full. Oh, Tom Patty's got the apricot and apple here. Ooh. You know what, actually, since you've just said that, I thought apricot and apple, what would that go well with? Pork. Because you always think if you're having pork, you have to have red wine to sort of, it's nice and fatty. But I think you could have this so nice. It's when you have pork cooked with apricots or apple. Ooh, that'd be really lovely. If anyone's having pork this evening, let me know. Sometimes a white wine alternative is always a good shout. Anne is having an argument in her house between medium and medium plus. It is a lot more body than you expect, and especially since it's a warm day. So when you first get this out of the fridge, I thought super low body, really light in body. And the warmer it gets, especially since I've had it out the fridge for almost an hour now, it's really warming up. You get more and more body, more and more texture, and that is the oak aging. It feels a little bit textured, a little bit rounder, a little bit soft, plump. So that's exactly it, and that's exactly what you're tasting. And I love white wines where you can have them really cold and it's a different wine to when you have it a little bit warmer, sort of more. It's probably about 25 degrees, this wine. It's not that warm in here. But definitely the texture's coming out now. So yeah, I'm gonna say slightly less than medium. I think this is a sort of 40% of the way on medium. Because if you think about your milk again, think about all those wines we've had when they're really sort of lees aging, malolactic fermentation. They're really sort of like drinking wonderful creaminess. This one isn't quite that. They've just pulled it back a little bit, really fresh. And that's what you get when you drink white wines that are made in very hot countries. They're making wines that they want to drink every day. So they're making wines that you want to have in the middle of August and summer. So, finish, the all-important one. How long can you taste this wine for? Let's have another sip of wine. I really like this one. The more I drink it, the more I just never want to stop drinking it. Let's not move to the red. No, I do like the red. We'll move to the red. I'm going to say, I think 9 seconds on that one. I think that's a really, really long time. And again, 5 seconds, 3 seconds, crap. 5 seconds is pretty good. 7 seconds is getting good. 10 seconds is amazing. So 9 seconds for this wine is huge. It's incredible, and it just shows how much work they put into the vineyard. So Rosa and Moses, they looked after the vineyard, but they're handing it over to their sons now. So as you saw in the video, Rodrigo and Asia, they're taking over more and more of the winemaking now, and they're really, really interested and very, very much involved in sustainable farming. It's not just about getting the maximum amount of grapes, it's about getting really good quality grapes, about looking after the environment around you as well. And everyone agrees. It's got such intensity, this wine. You can tell the farm has been so well looked after. 8 seconds, oh that's you, Fiona. 10 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 to 9. Really, really long finish, that was lovely. And what aromas did you get in this one? So we can mainly look, you know what, I think this one's mainly first circle, yeah. And when we're talking about quality of wine, we balanced it out really nicely. There was a lovely amount of acidity compared to body there. It felt, when you've got that acidity body scale, it feels fresh. If we were that way around, it would be a bit wintry too much, but that just felt summery, but still interesting. A little bit like the Sassavina, that sort of balance. So we've got our balance, we've got our finish, we've got depth of flavour, so I've written about an essay on here. And we don't have the complexity of flavour in this one. We're not going into this sort of second circle. But I don't think that's what this wine's about, because they also make red wines, and some of their red wines are really complex. But this is definitely a very much easy drinking white wine. It's one of those white wines that you could give to anyone and they would all like it. Funkiest Monkey says quite a long finish. Anne says apricot, peach, mandarin and apple. Completely agree. Yeah, and Laura's saying, interestingly, they're converting to fully organic. So they've been working on this for such a long time. It takes years to be certified organic. You have to go through so much paperwork, and I have seen a lot with some young winemakers, especially in sort of Australia and New Zealand. There's so much paperwork and so much expense to do all the documentation for fully being certified organic, that a lot of winemakers are fully organic, but they're just sort of waiting for their organic papers to go through. Which is always an interesting one. Ooh, nectarine, pineapple, yes, stone fruits, bit of vanilla, Ben and Hannah say. Let's smell it. You could be right with a bit of vanilla because it's from that French oak aging, so it'll have a tiny bit. And, oh, Hannah says we argue there's a hint of almond. Oh, I'm really getting my nose in. Sorry, this is a really bad angle for you. I'll just... You know what? I really see what you mean. It's almost this slight savoury character. And on mine, I put green parsley, which it's an odd one. But I think green almond and green parsley, that sort of... They're both that sort of savoury edge to this wine. So yeah, we've got loads of apricot, citrus, white flowers, tropical fruits, lime zest, honeydew melon. But then we've also got that sort of green edge to it, and it's just a little bit savoury. Denise said elderflower, yeah. Alessandra said, bit mineral. Yeah, it's this sort of really nice savoury edge to all of that, really balancing it out. I really like that. And you can put your verdict on it too. I'll do mine now. Don't mind me. Oh, blue lid, black pen. Let's hear that. I've got a really big smiley face in black pen though. Huge smiley face on that one. I really, really like it. That's a really fun wine. I'm so excited to see what's happening with Ribera del Duero in the next few years though, because now that's changed. I think we're just going to get some wonderful, wonderful white wines out of the region. It's so famous for red. It's all going to turn around. But thank you so much to Laura for joining us, and thank you to the whole family basically for that video, because it was really, really lovely. But we're going to be drinking our next wine, and that one is Vallechiusa Rosso. This one is from Tuscany. So it's a bit of a different Tuscan wine though. I'll show you the map. We'll do the whole introduction, don't you worry. Here is my map of Italy. So as you can see, we're in the north part of Italy. So this is Tuscany, and Ornina is the name of the winery. So this area is, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I'll just show you it straight away. We don't need to look at that. It's wonderful. So because it's so far inland, as you can see, really sort of very much inland in the middle, nowhere near the seas. And it's very, very hilly around this region. So you get sort of little microclimates going on in between these valleys and hills. It's a good amount of rain, but not too much. You get absolutely loads of sunshine, so you can grow really, really good quality grapes. And it's mainly red wine. I say mainly red wine. They do grow some lovely Malvasia too. But this is, I've got so many pictures of this one because it's absolutely beautiful. But I was Googling them earlier, and you can go and visit them and do tastings there. And you can even stay there. I found an 8-person villa, and luckily that fits everyone in the wine list. So we've already planned our trip, it'll be absolutely fine. But it's absolutely beautiful around here. And again, this vineyard runs in the family. You often find that with a lot of winemakers. It's sort of, it might not always be a winery for all the generations, but quite often the farm has been in the family for generations, the farmland. And then it takes the sort of the most recent generation to turn it into just doing grapes rather than doing mixed agriculture like previous generations have done. And this one is by Marco and his wife Greta. I've got a little video of them as well. And Marco it was his dad who, he planted the vineyard in the 1970s. They're really, really old, great quality grapes. And they've done really similar to the people at Arrocal. I was going to call them by their surname, but I was like, Arrocal is both their surnames. And this is, they started out organic, and now they've taken over Marco and Greta, and they're young winemakers, and they've turned it fully biodynamic. So it's been a huge sort of labour of love. It's very intense. Whenever I email Greta, she's busy working on the fields in the day. But here is a video of them so you can see them. That's so nice. But yeah, what a gorgeous vineyard that is. I might go visit them. But anyway, let's pour their wine out. Let's start tasting it. So in Tuscany, I mean, Tuscany is famous for Chianti, it's famous for Brunello di Montalcino, famous for Bulgaria, Super Tuscans, but this one is a little bit different because they've got the usual 4 grape varieties that they always tend to use in Tuscany. So they've got Merlot. We all know Merlot. It's that sort of easygoing grape that grows everywhere, all across the world. And Merlot is known as that sort of medium colour, medium tannin, medium body. Oh, sorry everyone at Wine List. I will turn that up. Should I just post the video again tomorrow? It's a lovely video. It's a bit jumpy as well. I'll post it tomorrow on our Instagram. So Merlot is one of those medium of everything grapes. And when something is sort of medium body, medium tannin, medium colour, medium, everything. There's nothing not to like about it. It's a really sort of easy pleasing grape. They've mixed Merlot with Sangiovese, and Sangiovese is the main grape in the area. It's the grape that goes into making Chianti. And again, it's a little bit more than Merlot. It's not just medium anymore. It's got some more interest to it. And Canaiolo is a grape that is local to Tuscany. It's been growing in Tuscany for centuries, but we don't really hear about it. And it's because Canaiolo and Sangiovese mainly are the two grapes that go in Chianti. These days it's mainly Sangiovese with a little bit of Canaiolo, but back in the 18th century, sort of 1700s, 1800s, not quite 1900s, it suddenly changed round in the 1900s. So before then it was all Canaiolo with a little bit of Sangiovese. And Canaiolo just sort of disappeared from everyone's wine knowledge. And it was because of a big sort of pest that wiped everywhere out. And it's when we had the pest that wiped everywhere out, why have I just forgotten the name of it? You all know what I mean anyway, I've talked about it before, come back to me in a minute. And it was, what is it called? Completely forgotten it. But the pest, it ate all the vines, you should know it. And what happened was when it spread across all of Europe, it destroyed all the crops, and what you had to do is had to graft your vines. So you have to take American roots, which were fine and they could survive it all, and you took European grapes, because American grapes don't taste the same as European ones because they've evolved separately. And so you have to put not locusts, Hannah, we're going to have to keep going. This is actually a really good test of all your wine knowledge, because if you've been listening to me all this time, I might have said it a few times. And when you take your American vines and put it onto European vines on American roots, then it will survive. So it took years. You had to rip out all your vineyards and you had to graft all your plants and then replant them and wait another 3 to 5 years to actually harvest any grapes at all. So it's a huge, huge turnaround. So what happened was when they did that with Sangiovese, grafted it onto American vines, onto American rootstocks, it took really, really well. It was very easy. You could just replant it straight away. But when you tried to do it with Canaiolo, you took the European Canaiolo grape and tried to put it on American roots, and it just wouldn't take. It was very, oh, thanks, Ellie. Phylloxera. Phylloxera, everyone. If you didn't write that in the comments at home, I'm judging your knowledge of listening to me. But when you tried to do it with Canaiolo, it just wouldn't work. So suddenly that Chianti recipe turned itself on its head, and no one was using Canaiolo anymore because it was just so difficult to grow. So, as we said with our wine earlier, the last one, the white one, whenever you have lots of red wines in the region, you always grow white wine as well, and you quite often, oh, so close, Jack, botrytis, not quite there. That's noble rot. That's when a rot affects your grape and turns it into a lovely sweet dessert wine. But I like this. It's good wine thesaurus going on down here. So when you have all these lovely red grapes thrown together, to just lighten it up a little bit, give it a bit more interest, you come in there with a white grape. So the last grape variety that goes into here is Trebbiano. So it's a little bit of white wine going into the blend, and it just lightens it up a little bit. They've also done another thing to this one. Instead of aging it inside oak, which we know and love, and instead of aging it inside stainless steel, which we know and love, they've aged it inside concrete. So when you age something inside stainless steel, it keeps it fresh. It doesn't affect anything. It keeps the wine in its purest form, so you're not changing. Fiona's just helping herself to a glass of wine. Sorry I didn't pour it out. It doesn't change anything when you age it inside stainless steel. It's keeping the acidity, it's keeping the fresh fruit flavours, and it's keeping the sort of easy texture of it. When you age it inside oak, as we know, it's very porous. So it's changing everything. It's changing texture, acidity, tannins, and it's giving it flavours, and it's giving it a lot of flavours. When you age it inside concrete, it's the perfect sort of in-between, and you'll notice a lot of winemakers, more and more, I think, it's getting a real trend, aging their wines inside concrete. And what happens is concrete is semi-porous, so you'll have a little bit of change to your wine. So you're changing the texture, it feels a bit rounder, more like oak aging. You're changing the acidity, it softens acidity out, Concrete is slightly alkaline, so I think that works in the sort of chemical change of it. And the other thing is flavours. Well, tannins actually first. It softens the tannins out like it does with acidity because of that porousness. And the fourth thing is flavours. So when you're aging inside concrete, it's not changing any of the flavours. So it's perfectly in between stainless steel and oak. You're getting all the textures changing, all the characteristics at the top, but none of the flavours. You're keeping it really sort of true to form with the flavours. But we'll taste it anyway. I'll let you tell me that. What's the colour like on this one? Hold it up against your card. So remember, we've got quite a big portion of Merlot, which is usually medium in colour. Oh, by the way, sorry, I didn't notice on the comments. I said thank you to Ellie for typing Phylloxera. Anne wrote Phylloxera first, Ellie. But Anna, I'm really, really proud of that. Very well done. And you spelt it right as well. I wouldn't have done that. So the colour is sort of, yeah, hold it up against a white piece of paper. Medium. Can you see that? How you can test it is you can sort of hold it like this, don't spill it, pass your hand on the other side. If you can see your hand, it's usually quite light in colour. Usually means it might be light in body too. If you can't see your hand at all when you have a sort of big, heavy Malbec, a Madiran, something Tanat, huge, you can't see your hand at all, it's really deep in colour and it's going to be quite full-bodied usually. This is sort of medium. I'd say almost sort of 60% because I'm really struggling to see my hand. But it has that sort of nice ruby red colour to it. As we said, it's 2018, so you can almost see it's 2018. It's not purple. If it was literally just come out the bottle and it was a big grape variety, it'd be purple. Like when you have a really young Malbec or Barbera, they're purple. But Merlot is usually very sort of red in colour, as is Sangiovese. So it's nice ruby, not quite brown yet from the aging. So, tannins. How much is this drying your mouth out? Have a little taste. Bit so-so. Oh, Tom says, notice tiny bubbles at the base of your glass. Well, I was chatting to Greta and she said, so this one, she was a bit, she asked you all actually, she said, is it okay if we open this 15 minutes beforehand? I didn't tell you to do that, I'm really sorry. But you can do it by swirling it around in your glass. We'll air it up, we'll balance it out. I should have told you. I did chill mine in the fridge for a bit because it's sort of 23 degrees outside. If your wine's a bit too warm, it starts to taste a bit different. You get a bit more bitterness inside red wine when it's too warm. So, I chilled it a little bit, I swirled it around. When I very first opened this, it felt almost fizzy like those bubbles. And it was like a real sort of harsh fizz, but as soon as you have your glass out for 5 minutes, it completely softens out. And that's all about letting wine breathe. As soon as it hits the glass, it does change a bit. And Greta said that because it's such a hot summer, not so much here, but because you're transporting it all the way across Europe, quite often, there are always sort of temperature controlled lorries, but sometimes just between changes of lorries, you can have quite a bit of heat, so it can change how the wine feels. But 10 minutes in your glass and it's absolutely fine again. I didn't notice anything bad with this one. It's nice when I first opened it. So, tannins, I'm going to say, ooh, everyone else is saying medium. I think medium too. Hannah said medium high. I'd say it's sort of 60%. I'm going to go with medium, but you can really feel the tannins here. And Sangiovese is usually, it's got a nice bit of tannin to it. So does Caniolo. So you can feel that, but the concrete softened it. What is the acidity like? Because if our tannin is drying our mouth out, acidity needs to swoop in and save that. And I think that's why, yeah, because you can feel how crunchy those tannins are, but they don't really stick around. Oh yeah, yeah, you can really feel those tannins. They're really there on your tongue, but your mouth's watering so much that it really balances it out nicely. I'm going to say a 6 or 7 out of 10 on acidity. I might have to test one more time. George has asked, our local wine shop said 2018 was a great year for Italy. Is there a reason for this? Do you remember 2018 in England? Do you remember 2018 in England? It was a great summer, wasn't it? And whenever you have a great summer, like last year, it means that it's usually quite a good summer for the wine regions around us. So I don't think it was very good for, I think it was Australia. It's very hard to memorise all the places where they have good vintages, because you can have one valley that got perfect amount of sunshine. You can have the next valley which just suddenly got hit with all the rain. So it's really difficult to sort of say this exact place was great this year, but 2018 was a really good year for most of Europe if you look at it. Because there was so much sunshine and heat, all the grapes really ripened. They had enough rain just in the sort of springtime when you need the rain. And then they had the full sunshine when they had the grapes there, so they could fully ripen, create lots of sugars. And if you trimmed your grapes properly, didn't let them grow too much, it means that you don't have many grapes, you have a low yielding crop. And low yielding crop with a lot of sunshine is great because it concentrates so much sugar, flavour and nutrients into your grapes. And it's like when you cook, you know, when you make a tomato sauce and you buy really crap tomatoes and it just tastes watery, it's awful. But when you really invest in your really good tomatoes, get them from your own greenhouse or something, your tomato sauce is beautiful all of a sudden. It's exactly the same with wine. So the acidity really balances out the tannins for us. Yeah, I feel the same. It feels like a really nice, easy drink, that one. Even though it feels like it should be big, then suddenly it's really easy going. Yeah, Tom, that's exactly how I remember 2018 was good, because it was coming home that summer. It's a great summer for wine. So, sweetness, 0. It's all been turned into alcohol. It's nice and dry, this one. Still feels fruit forward, but without being sweet. Body is medium, I think, and that's a classic sort of Merlot Sangiovese blend. They tend to be sort of wines, grapes that create wines that are medium in body. They're not going to be some huge big grape wine, and it's just got that nice sort of pulled back, and it's 2018 as well, so it's not even going to grow in that body. So finish, how long is the finish in this one? How long can you taste it for? Let's have a sip. I think 6 seconds on this one, which is shorter than the last one. We do say 5 seconds is when it's pretty good, 7's when it's really quite good. This is only 6, I think, but I'm actually really happy with that because all of the other things inside this wine are so enjoyable. Sometimes you can give a little bit on the finish and it's still a really, really enjoyable wine. I still really, really like it. You still get something there after 6 seconds, but it's sort of acidity and tannin that you're feeling more after that rather than the actual really concentrated flavours. So, Emma was drinking cider in 2018. I was drinking cider last week, Emma. Got a very good cider case. So the aromas on this one, what are the aromas you're getting? When Fiona first opened it, she said, farmy. She said that in a different word. We'll say the polite way. She said, everyone's okay. Everyone's saying the same, 6, 7 seconds. Yeah, that's sort of a nice spot. Is everyone smelling a sort of farminess on this one? I think it smells really earthy, farmy. Fiona said pooey whispers. That's what she said. And she also said pencils as well, which is really interesting because I wrote down cedar, and I mean, we're talking about the complex flavours first, really complex wine. And I put cedar in, and as soon as Fiona said pencils, it's exactly that. It's like pencils are made of cedar. Graphite almost. Anne says meat, almost offensive. Everyone was drinking cider in 2018. Denise says farmy, smoke. I think you said earlier smoke as well, yeah. Barnyard, full on. But it's not barnyard in a way that you have sort of, you know, when you have like a Rhone Valley Chateauneuf-du-Pape and it's farmy barnyard. It feels really elegant with that, and I think it's that sort of cedar, pencil shavings. Yeah, I'm glad Lizzie sees the pencil shavings, like a pencil sharpener. But then we have all these really interesting flavours, but we need to make sure it's balanced with all that fruit. And we've got the fruit, strawberry, red cherry, red currant, it's all these red, wrong colour, it's all these really red berries. But, next point, green as well. So you know how on the last one we had that sort of herbaceous note to it? This one has a little bit of, almost like an underripe, loads of ripe berries with just one underripe berry thrown in there to make it smell really green. Yeah, Hannah said olives, exactly that. Very sort of green, savoury, and both of these wines that we've had tonight have both had that sort of savoury edge to them, which makes it really, really interesting. Anne says more cabbage. Yeah. Yeah. And funkiest monkey. Lighter fluid. Nice. Are you saying in this wine, or are you just saying what you were drinking in 2018 at this point? I really like that one. I think that's a really interesting one. It's really nice. Mine's now quite warm, but it's really nice having it in the fridge too, having it sort of 14 degrees. And I think if you're taking that, I would take that to a picnic in a park. It's very nice next week. And I would put that in the fridge for a couple of hours. By the time you take it out, open it, pour it out, it's sort of warming up, so it's a really good sort of temperature. That is a huge smiley face. That says I'm dehydrated, by the way. That's why my acidity was low at first. I had to scribble it out. But thank you so much. Thank you to Marco and Greta as well. It's really lovely to see you. But which was everyone's favourite wine between the two? You know what, I do this every time, and every time I say, oh, I don't have a favourite, I like both of them my favourite, but they were really good. But we have 2 tastings coming up, so before I do leave you, because I'll let you finish off your bottles of wine, but we've got 2 tastings, by the glass tastings, and those by the glass tastings are also by the bottle if you want to, or on demand if you can't make them, because I mean, it's August, who's free in August? But this is them, so you can see them. We have a swap out your Sauvignon tasting coming up. So I've basically picked out, you know how you always have those friends who really love Sauvignon, but you just want to mix it up sometimes when you go out. So there's sort of 5 different Sauvignons that, not Sauvignons, that are a little bit like it, but different grape varieties. And what about skin contact? So I picked 3 wines. You can do it by the glass or by the bottle. It's completely up to you. So it's next Thursday and next Wednesday as well. Oh, I'm playing a video again. Oh no. Press the wrong thing. So you can do either, to be honest, but we will put the link into the comments now so you can come and join me. It's basically just this, but I can see you as well. And on Thursday, this Thursday, it's tomorrow, me and Fiona are just on Twitter, and you can do Twitter spaces, so you basically just chat to each other. It's like one long continuous voice note, which is very off-putting for some people. I love a voice note. And we're drinking a wine from M&S. We're having an orange wine. It's Georgian orange made in a Cabra, and we're just going to chat about it for 15 minutes and drink it. You can just drop in if you want to. It's at 6 p.m, so you can join us. But if you missed any of that I said, just drop us an email if you have any questions. Oh, everyone's saying the white was their favourite. This is so fun. Oh, there, we've just put the link in. Oh no, okay, it's split between white and red. It's split between white and red. Oh, that's so interesting. I was trying to bet how many people would say white and how many people would say red. I thought you'd all say red tonight, but it is a very nice hot summer's day, and that always makes me want to drink white wine as well. But thank you so much everyone for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. It was lovely to see you again. It was lovely to be back. And I already can't wait to see you all in tastings throughout the month and next month, because we love chatting about wine. But thank you so much. Take care and enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your wine. Goodbye.